Good afternoon, I am Precious Mzeya Sakaleji. Welcome to Camnet TV Midday News. The headlines. One CONCOURT judge says ECL is not eligible against the majority 8 judges. Animals and human beings share same water sources in CHONGWE. Join me with the Midday News in detail after this commercial.
Chambo chanoa, baba muwato wanoa, nokuwamba na tubomba sofa, tatwa kaleke sori. Chambo chanoa, baba muwato wanoa.
And now the media news in detail. Over 300 residents of LUNGU area of Nakatindi ward in CHONGWE district have been subjected to sharing the same water sources with animals due to lack of boreholes in the area. The residents have accused government of neglecting them, citing the failure by their former councillor Evans Mohami to lobby for boreholes on their behalf. A resident, Given Lubinda, says when the shallow water sources dry up, residents in the area are forced to walk long kilometers in search of water. The residents have since vowed to change leadership in the area, saying no amount of bribe will force them to change their minds.
Water is one of the most important substances on earth, as all plants and animals must have water to survive, meaning if there was no water, there could be no life on earth. Water is also very important to the human body, as every one of the body cells, organs and tissues use water to help them with temperature regulations, keeping hydrated and maintaining body functions. Drinking water is good for the overall health of a human being. But these residents of Nabulungu area in Mikango Barracks, Nakatindi ward in CHONGWE district are lacking this basic commodity, forcing them to share the same water source with animals.
Tilibe manzi kuno kwa metili ku area ya Nakatindi ward. Ndiye manzi ya meti kumwa tenzeli na wa kansela watu wa Muhambi. Wanakaingwa kutitandiza ise kuti waonepo pa kwerepo pa issue ya manza. So ise tifuna change. Tifuna imwa masebo uti muonepo pa issue ya manzi ya meti kumwa. Tufukai manzi ya memuona ya doti ya meti kumwa na ngombe. Zamu kombo pamene zimamwa pamene hapa. So tipemba uti wa government mugwerepo pa issue ya manza hapa.
Disease causing germs and chemicals can find their way into water suppliers. When this happens, the water becomes polluted and contaminated, and when people drink it or come in contact with it in other ways, they can become very sick, and this is what these residents are subjected to.
Tulina vuto kuno please na papa tai. Chifukwa nikayangana na nkara kuno for 40 years. Nankara na bana 8 na baziku 12. Batu kali kumwa migoti ya mene. So kutoka hapo vuto ya mene tulindayo kuno kuntu. Tipempa kuti please mutuyanga nepo.
As though the water problems are not enough, this 70-year-old man and others in this area have been threatened with evacuations, and now this farmer laments that he does not know where to go next.
Ife wantu kuno tankara zaka zambili chilubisa nchauti masoja wakamba kuti wachichose marwano sinizo kuti wasatukeleka naka president watu wakamba kuchani wakani mene ifuka tankara udanda ulantoa itali wakani mozi na mozi ma sitira nzira ansa yochokera kwa president so ifuka jaicho zaswa tenda ulanaito kuti tibe kuenda so sinizo komena zasipeleka masoja mena.
Meanwhile, Peter Musuka, a resident of Rwamba Ward in CHONGWE, says roadworks in the area were abandoned after the dismiss of President Michael Sata, which has posed challenges in the area, especially in rain season. These many challenges have forced these residents to vow that come August, they will vote for leaders who put their interest first.
I road mwamebana yambira wenzepo wa President wa Sata na ba Honorable Masero ndiye banafaka kotala kuirukonza ko road kwenda kufika mpaka kuti. So manje mwamene banafera basata na road na maproject akuno ndiye mwamene anaperera pamene apo. So iyi road ikafika rainy season kulibe myoto kamene maenda vamachita booking ama tractors kuti vaende kuti tiende kwenda kufika kucho. So vantu vamavutika maningi. So manje that's why itapanga kutati manje tichinjeko boma.
With only a month left before the August pause, Zambians have a task ahead of them to scrutinize the motive behind every leader aspiring for various political positions to ensure that only those with the interest to serve the Zambian people get in those political offices. Prudence Chota, reporting for Camnet TV News.
Transparency International Zambia TIZ has urged the Electoral Commission of Zambia ECZ to take interest in the matter where Patriotic Front presidential running mate Professor Nkanduluo has continued to move around the country with the Vice President Inongawina using state properties. TIZ Executive Director Maurice Nyambe says while it is cognizant of the fact that the Vice President has the right to have anyone accompany her on official trips involving the party's running mate in the manner and allowing her to use the opportunity to campaign as a blatant abuse of public resources. Mr. Nyambe adds that Mrs. Winner's trips have been said to be for purpose of inspecting government developmental projects, but the TIZ is alarmed to see that Professor Luo has also been using the same trips to interact with electorates and engage in campaigns for her political party. He has since reminded Professor Luo and her party of the law which stipulates that political parties shall not use public resources to promote its interest or that of its members.
It has come to TIZ's attention that the presidential running mate for the Patriotic Front, Professor Nkanduluo, has been moving around the country with the Vice President, Madam Inongawina. While Mrs. Winner's trips have been said to be for purposes of inspecting government developmental projects, we are alarmed to see that Professor Luo has also been using the same trips to interact with the electorate and to engage in campaigns for her political party. While we are cognizant of the fact that Her Honor the Vice President has the right to have anyone accompany her on official trips, our considered view is that involving the party's running mate in this manner and allowing her to use the opportunity to campaign is a blatant abuse of public resources by Professor Luo. TIZ would like to remind Professor Luo and her party of Article 60, Part 3D of the Zambian Constitution as amended in 2016, which stipulates that a political party shall not use public resources to promote its interest or that of its members. TIZ further requests the Electoral Commission of Zambia to take interest in this matter, since Article 3B of the Electoral Process Act number 35 of 2016 stipulates that it is the duty of the Commission to ensure that political parties do not use state resources to campaign for the benefit of any political party or candidate.
In other news, the Constitutional Court has dismissed the petition where Chapter 1 Foundation Limited, Legal Resources Limited and Dr. Sishua were challenging the nomination of Patriotic Front presidential candidate EDGAR LUNGU to contest in this year's general election on grounds that his nomination is valid and the petition has no merit. Delivering the majority judgment Friday afternoon, Judge Anna Setali stated that the matter concerning the eligibility of the respondent had already been dealt with in the Daniel Pule and Bampi Kapalasa case. The court ruled that Article 106 does not stop the respondent from contesting, hence Lungu's is entitled to stand. However, one of the judges, Professor Margaret Monalula, had a different view concerning the judgment, which she says will give details on the 30th of June when the full detailed judgment will be delivered. Meanwhile, the court had also dismissed the petition against all presidential running mates for lack of merit. And speaking to journalists shortly after the ruling, Chapter 1 Foundation Executive Director Linda Kasonde says it is now upon the people of Zambia to make the decision.
The debate surrounding the eligibility of President Edgar Lungu has finally come to its conclusion, with the court this afternoon ruling in his favor, giving him a go-ahead to contest in this year's general elections. Despite the Constitutional Court this afternoon delivering a majority judgment, which was read by Justice Judge Annie Sitali, that President Lungu's nomination papers are valid, hence he is eligible to contest in this year's general elections. One judge, Professor Margaret Manalula, holds a dissenting judgment. Dissenting judgment simply means that she does not agree with the final judgment, but the majority wins. In this case, President Lungu's nomination was being challenged by Chapter 1 Foundation, Legal Resources Limited, and Dr. Shishua on ground that he held office twice. The three petitioners had argued that President Lungu contravened Article 1063 of the Constitution the moment he had filed in his nomination papers with the returning officer, supported by an affidavit stating that he is qualified to contest as a presidential candidate in the general elections. They had further argued that if the court allows him to contest in these elections, he will be standing for a third time. But the court, in its judgment, stated that it had already ruled on what constituted a term in the Dani Pule and Kapalasa case, hence the petition before court lacks merit and accordingly dismissed. The court says when President Lungu was first elected in 2015, after the death of Michael Sata, he did not serve a term of office as it was less than 3 years. In speaking to the media shortly after the court judgment, Chapter 1 Executive Director Linda Kasonde says they will respect the court ruling, but it is now up to the citizens.
Before the Constitutional Court, in line with our constitutional right under Article 2 of the Constitution to uphold and defend the Constitution as by law established. And in fact, that is also my duty as a legal practitioner. And we did just that. We did attempts to defend the Constitution. Unfortunately, the court has ruled against us. It's not that we've changed our views, that we must respect the will of the court, and now it's up to now that the president is on the ballot paper, and the election will go ahead, and it's up to the voters who they want to vote for.
Meanwhile, the court has also dismissed the petition where Dr. Shishua and Lusaka lawyer Alfred Nkanda were seeking the nullification of all presidential running mates on ground that they did not comply with the law. And this was the Attorney General's comment over the judgment.
The court has basically agreed with a notice of motion to dismiss for incompetence on the ground that running mates are not candidates for purposes of Article 52. So that's basically the order of the court. So the running mates are not supposed to file in nomination, and the court agreed with that position. And of course, I've also urged the states to ensure that those provisions which are not in line with the Constitution should be brought in line with the Constitution. That is, the provisions of the Electoral Process Act.
Miriam Kaimba reporting for Camnet TV News.
The People's Alliance for Change PAC says many vulnerable Zambians risk becoming economic refugees if voters do not seize the rare opportunity to vote wisely and change their lives for the better in the forthcoming August 12th, 2021 general election. PAC Vice President William Harrington says there is urgent need to arrest the unfortunate socio-economic status the country finds itself in currently, which is as a result of free fall of the kwacha against majority international currencies, mismanagement and rampant corruption. He says should the Zambian people allow the current downward trend of the economy to continue, the country will find itself in the same or even worse circumstances than a country to our south experienced some years ago, which forced its citizens to seek refuge in South Africa. Mr. Harrington said the prevailing situation in our country must be of major concern to any reasonable and fair-minded citizen, hence the need for the Zambian voter to vote wisely to avert unavoidable socio-economic crisis. He is concerned that basic commodities are beyond their reach, adding that today in Zambia, it is not only just a matter of the cost of living, but rather the cost of mere survival.
Many vulnerable Zambians risk becoming economic refugees if we, as voters, do not seize the rare opportunity to vote wisely and change our lives for the better in the forthcoming August 12, 2021 general elections. There is urgent need to address the unfortunate socio-economic status that our country finds itself currently, which is as a result of the free fall of the kwacha against major international currencies, mismanagement and rampant corruption. If we, the Zambian people, allow the current downward trend of the economy to continue, our country will find itself in the same or even worse circumstances than a country to our south experienced some years ago, which forces citizens to seek refuge in countries such as South Africa. The prevailing situation.
Well, that news item brings us to the end of Camnet TV Midday News, but before we go, the headlines once again. One CONCOURT judge says ECL is not eligible against the majority of 8 judges. Animals and human beings share same water sources in CHONGWE. Thank you for joining me. I am Precious Mzeya Sakaleji. Remember to always wear your mask, wash your hands for at least 20 seconds, or use alcohol-based hand sanitizer. Stay safe. Good afternoon.